credible reports about Russian government interference in our elections. The fact that our intelligence professionals are now studying this and taking it seriously raises some grave questions about potential Russian interference with our electoral process. When Putin was asked about it, he could barely muster the energy to deny it. If any of you saw that. In fact, he went on to say it was a good thing that the DNC had been hacked. And, of course, the intelligence consensus is it was hacked by Russian intelligence. So we are facing a very serious concern. We've never had a foreign adversarial power be already involved in our electoral process with the DNC hacks. We've never had a nominee of one of our major parties urging the Russians to hack more. So I am grateful that this is being taken seriously, and I want everyone, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, to understand the real threat that this represents. And then finally, I heard, now that we've got this great plane, that Donald Trump actually invited his press onto his plane, where I'm told he even answered a few questions. So following my lead, as he just did, I would hope he continues and releases his tax returns. That would be the best way to demonstrate his commitment to actually the level of disclosure that is expected of someone running for president. So with that, I'd love to take your questions.
Hello, everybody. Why don't we start? We'll go around, but let's start right here with Ken.
Madam Secretary, on the issue of cyber attacks, you said in Cincinnati that a cyber attack should be treated like any other attack.
Right. How
should the U.S. respond to these potential threats to our election system? And do you think there's a potential of ramping up of some type of Cold War with Russia over this problem?
It's a really important question, Ken. And I listened very carefully to what President Obama said in his press conference. He met with Putin. He made it clear that we do not want a cyber contest. We don't want a Cold War cyber conflict. But we do want there to be rules that people will abide by. And as the president rightly said, we have greater capacity than anybody in the world, both offensively and defensively. We have shown great restraint in responding to the series of attacks by both state and non-state actors. We've had attacks on our banking systems. We've had attacks on numerous private businesses. We've had attacks on many government agencies, as you all know. But unless there is a willingness on the part of the major national actors in launching cyber attacks, namely Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, we are going to have to take those threats and those attacks seriously. And that's why I was relieved that our national security professionals made the point about Russian interference with our elections. It's almost unthinkable. And from my perspective, having met with and watched Putin over the years, when I saw his response to that question, it was very clear he's quite satisfied with himself. And we have to be doubly on guard to protect our electoral system at all levels, and we have to make it clear that we're not going to let anyone interfere with the decisions of the American people.
Madam Secretary, about the FBI.
There we go. John?
Just in light of that, just in past the comments that Donald Trump has made on that subject and encouraging going after emails, like that's such a different way.
I think it raises even more serious questions about Trump. Look, I've been saying for months he's unqualified, he's he's temperamentally unfit to be president and commander-in-chief. But if you look at his behavior toward, well, I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm going to lay out the facts and let the intelligence professionals do their job, and let the American people and the press do your job. So I think we'll leave it at that. Your second question was about the Trump Foundation, right? And I am quite taken aback by the foundation making a political contribution to the Florida Attorney General, who was just about to investigate Trump University and then ending the investigation. I mean, there's so many things that are questionable about that, and the IRS certainly thought so and said it was illegal and fined Trump for that set of facts.
Secretary.
Why don't we go to Laura?
Hey, Laura.
Excellent choice. Can I ask you about, evidently you talked to ABC today about the foundation. You thought it
Yes.
wasn't appropriate for your husband to be involved if you're elected. What about your daughter? Do you think it's appropriate for her to be still involved with the foundation? And does that raise some of the similar types of conflict of interest concerns?
Well, Laura, we'll reach that if I'm elected, but I just want to say how proud I am of the work the foundation has done. And it's world renowned for what it's accomplished since my husband started it. 11.5 million people get low-cost HIV/AIDS drugs that would have had a hard time doing that without the work that it has done. They brought the price of malaria drugs down 90% so that is now readily available. They're working on a program to get the antidote to heroin overdose into every high school in America. And there's so much more. You know, the Charity Navigator just gave it 4 stars. That's the third independent watchdog to really give the highest level of approval, and I am proud of that. So a lot of what's been said is just not founded in fact, and the foundation made the decision that it will be making some significant changes that they're underway right now, but I'm not going to make any additional comments about that. They're doing what they believe is right for the foundation.
Secretary.
Let's go right here to Amy, right here.
Secretary.
Hey, Amy.
Hello. What is your response to the deterioration of Syria talks at the G20, and do you think the no-fly zone you proposed is still plausible given the situation with the Russians?
Look, I think the whole situation has deteriorated in many ways because of the refusal of the Russians and the Iranians to put the kind of pressure on Assad that is necessary to reach an accommodation that would save lives and create humanitarian deliveries. So I fully support continuing any effort bilaterally with the Russians, multilaterally through the UN. But I think we need leverage. I've always thought that, which is why I've always supported a no-fly zone. And I've always believed that if that were on the table and if it was clear that we were going to pursue it, that would give us leverage, which we don't have right now.
Secretary Clinton. Nancy, right here.
Do you feel that you contributed to the perception that there were these blurred lines between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation by having several employees who seem to go back and forth between the two?
No, I don't, Nancy. Look, everything I did at the State Department, I did in furtherance of America's interests and our security. The State Department has said there's absolutely no evidence of any kind of external influence. And I know that to be the fact, and I know that the people who worked with me were devoted as well to pursuing the foreign policy that the Obama administration set forth.
Secretary, why don't we go right down here?
Tamara from NPR. President Obama said today that cannot be disputed that TPP would be better than the status quo. So, do you agree, and what are you offering other than the status quo?
Well, obviously I don't agree because I don't support TPP. And I don't on a range of issues, which I've talked about at length. And I think there could be actions taken that would be in America's interest, that would raise incomes, produce more jobs for Americans, and further our position and our security in the Pacific. And that's the kind of approach that I think we should be taking.
Do you think some sort of trade deal is needed to counterbalance China, for instance?
Look, we have to do a lot of things to counterbalance China. A lot of Asian nations are quite worried about the increasingly aggressive behavior of China. The South China Sea is just one example. So I'm well aware that we have to do more. And it has to be on many levels, strategic and our military force, particularly our Navy, economic, cultural. There's a lot of work for us to do. We also have to honor our alliances. We have 5 treaties in Asia where we are pledged to defend those 5 nations. And Donald Trump has acted as though that's an option. That's not how great countries behave. So we have a lot of work to do, and I intend to pursue a number of paths that I think will strengthen our position in Asia.
Okay, folks, we gotta get going. Why don't we do one more from Jeff right here?
Okay,
Go ahead.
Secretary Clinton, you mentioned your seasonal allergies.
Yes.
Are you concerned about conspiracy theories about your health and whether that will affect the election? And are you concerned separately about the tightening polls with Donald Trump?
I'm not concerned about the conspiracy theories. There are so many of them, I've lost track of them. And so I pay no attention to them.
You think they're sexist?
Interesting. What did he say today? He said something. What did he say today?
Presidential and that
Fellas. Fellas, yeah.
So do you think that in general he's frankly just kind of tinsies she would be the first, but how can we possibly do that?
I don't know. That's for you guys to opine upon. Look, I've always thought this was going to be a close race. That's the history of modern presidential elections. So that's why we're working as hard as we can. We're not, taking anything for granted. We have campaigns in all 50 states. We have at least, last count, 400 offices open. We have 1 million volunteers working regularly and about 10 million more people who are involved in some way in the campaign. We're just going as hard and fast as we possibly can to be organized for turning out the vote, because we've always thought this was going to be hard, and that's why I'm not worried. I'm just working.
All right, guys, thanks very much. See you a little bit later.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We're going to get off the plane. We're
We have
going
to
to go
get
to an
off.
event.
Thank you.
It's going to be fun.